What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nintendo Land. What? 2 videos and a live stream today? What is going on? Well, it's a very special day because we got a Switch 1 Nintendo Direct, but we also got some really interesting news for Switch 2, including the games coming to Switch 2 and the Switch 1 games maybe even being enhanced on Switch 2. This isn't a rumor, this isn't a leak, this is confirmed straight from the mouths of Nintendo, believe it or not. On Nintendo's brand new app, Nintendo Today, it actually talks about the new virtual game cards and how you can download games and you can share them and you can take them to another console and stuff. And there's actually a section where it states, compatible systems must be linked to a Nintendo account to use virtual game cards. Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games and Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games can only be loaded on a Nintendo Switch 2 system. To move virtual game cards between 2 systems, you must pair the systems via local wireless and an internet connection, but only when pairing the systems for the first time. Up to 2 systems total can be linked per Nintendo account. This is freaking huge, and it confirms something that I was hoping for, but still, it's confirmed that we will have specific Switch 2 Edition games. Now, a lot of people might think to themselves, of course, it's a new console, what's the big deal? Yeah, I get it. A new console, you're gonna get new game cards that only work on that new console. That's the point of having a new console in the first place. But I had a little bit in the back of my mind, like the potential Nintendo was just going to have, you know, games come out for both Switch 1 and Switch 2, and you can play them on both the entire time, but Switch 2 just looks better. But nope, we will have specific Switch 2 games, and that's why we're getting a Switch 2 Direct to show us what those Switch 2 games are, since we don't have a single one announced, not even Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. If it does come to Switch 2, it will have probably 2 separate versions. Something else that's massive about this is it doesn't just say Switch 2 exclusive games, but also Switch 2 Edition games, which is strange. So that shows maybe specific Switch 1 games that are Switch 2 Edition games might get an upgrade, which is something that we've been, really wondering if it would be a reality. We've been hearing rumors about this for a while now, that some games will be enhanced on Switch 2. So it's probably only a select number of games, but it seems like some games will be Switch 2 Edition, allowing us to play enhanced versions of those. Now, I don't know if those are going to just be games that we've seen like in today's Direct, like Rhythm Heaven coming out. We also have Metroid Prime 4 and even Tomodachi Life. Are those just the Switch 2 Edition games, or like multiple different titles from Switch 1 going to be called Switch 2 Edition, like Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, where we can now run it at 60 frames instead of 30, Breath of the Wild that maybe now runs at 4K instead of just 1080. This is super interesting. I want to talk about both of these for the rest of this video, but going back to the actual Switch 2 only games is great. I think that's a really good thing. I know a lot of people are going to want to play that new Mario Kart on their current Switches and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's going to be better for Nintendo and better for us in the long run. I mean, I think it also excites me to know that these games are going to look 10 times better than what we've even been thinking, because like we all thought Metroid Prime 4 was coming to Switch 2. The game looks insane, and the fact that that's not a Switch 2 exclusive is also insane. Now, that's probably one of the Switch 2, which means you could buy the game for Switch 1 or buy it in its Switch 2 edition. And at first, I thought to myself, there's no way in the world Nintendo's going to show this game off for the Switch 2 presentation. But now, I'm thinking, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to show this game off for the Switch 2 presentation, because they're going to show it off like they already did for Switch 1, and then for the presentation, they can say, hey, here's a side-by-side at what the Switch 2 is going to be able to make the game look like. And I think that's going to be fantastic to see firsthand. Like, okay, Switch 1 edition looks cool and everything, but then seeing like the night and day difference of what Switch 2 is going to make the game look like, now I'm very curious, because like I said, Metroid Prime 4, look at the footage that I'm playing right now. It looks insane for a Switch game. Like, Metroid Prime Remastered looked amazing, but this game looks too good to be on, current Nintendo Switch. So maybe showing the frame rate and the, how much better the graphics are going to be on Switch 2, maybe it's going to like incentivize people to buy that Switch 2 edition instead of the Switch 1, but for people that can't get a Switch 2 or don't want to get a Switch 2 yet, they can just buy it on Switch 1, so like that's an awesome choice to be able to have. Yeah, I'm glad that there's just straight up Switch 2 exclusive games. That tells me that these games are just way too graphically demanding to be able to be played on Switch 1, so you have to have a Switch 2 to play them. That makes me excited for 3D Mario. Even the Mario Kart that they showed off, like you can only play that game on Switch 2, I think is a really good call. It's going to make people want to go out and buy a Switch 2. I don't know why people would want it the other way around. I get it if you don't want to spend the money on a Switch 2 right away, but still, the Switch 2 is not going to be successful without the games. The games are the most important part, so I'm guessing it's going to be very similar to the original cartridge, just like maybe with like a little extension at the top, kind of like the 3DS cartridges had. Something very similar overall, I'm expecting. So yeah, but still, I think it's very, very good that they are going, exclusive Switch 2 games and Switch 2 Edition games, which I want to get into now. Now, what's up with the Switch 2 2 edition games. I don't know. I don't think it's clearly going to be every game because it straight up says that there's going to be Switch 2 edition. So that tells me that only some games are going to be able to have that, you know, Switch 2 capability, maybe making the game look better, run better, you know, just giving you, a better quality game overall. And I am wondering what games are going to get this treatment and to what extent is that treatment going to go? Is it just going to fix the frame rates? Is it going to enhance the graphics greatly? Like, are we going to be playing Breath of the Wild in a completely different form? Now, there were rumors that Breath of the Wild was going to get some type of 4K version. It seems like this just might be a game that gets the Switch 2 edition treatment. You know, just straight up, if you have Breath of the Wild, you can put it in and play it in this enhanced version. Maybe even bumping the game up to 4K, the frame rate up, you know, maybe even like giving us crazy frame rates, like 120 would be crazy. But I'm really excited to see what it actually does to our current Switch library and what games get included. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be the basic lineup, at least from the start. Maybe it's just a patch that they can send to all the games eventually and they just roll them out slowly, which would also give us a reason to go back and play the games. Like maybe each week 1 or 2 games gets that, you know, update and they're like, hey, these 2 games are now Switch 2 edition. Go ahead and play them on your Switch 2. And like they get this graphical update and stuff and it looks like 10 times better. That's super exciting, and I think takes backwards compatibility to the next level. I really hope that the Switch 2 edition games aren't just games coming out, for instance, like it's just the games that we just heard about in the Direct, like Tomodachi Life, you know, Rhythm Heaven and all that, meaning that maybe Nintendo does this thing like they kind of did with the 3DS, keep it running for like a year and then eventually move away from it, which is something that they'll probably do for Switch. We'll see Switch 1 games that can be played on both Switch 1 and Switch 2, probably for the first year of Switch 2, not completely abandoning that Switch 1 market right away. I really hope this doesn't just include new games, like we can actually go back and, you know, play some old games that get selected to be Switch 2 editions. But this is super exciting. That was one of the biggest things I wanted with this new console, is to be able to have enhanced versions of the games that we already have, because there's a lot of games just don't run too great right now. I know Echoes of Wisdom had a lot of stutter. I know Mario & Luigi Brothership had a lot of problems in specific areas, so maybe going back and playing those games with a smooth frame rate and, you know, upped graphics as well could be really amazing. And I think that's what they've even been preparing for when they showed us that digital Switch card thing. Maybe showing us how we'll be able to move Switch 1 games over to Switch 2 in the same manner or something like that. Definitely looking forward to learning more about that and backwards compatibility with Switch 2 during that Direct. So let me know what you think about this. Are you excited about this possible enhancement of games? You know, the Switch 2 games are going to have exclusive games as well that you can only play on Switch 2. Let me know what you think. Let me know your opinions. Thank you for tuning in. Leave a like and subscribe before you head out. And like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.